Hello, my name is Owen, and today I'll be doing a quick review of Gabrielle Zevin's Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. What I want to do is give a brief overview of what the book is about, tell you things that I liked, and tell you things that I didn't like. This is a very, very hyped up book. It was Barnes & Noble's book club, book of the month for July. Jimmy Fallon was talking about it in his book club that I guess he has. Overall, getting great reviews, stuff like NPR and other sites like that. So I had to check it out. Normally, I don't go for whatever book like the mainstream media is promoting, but I thought I was in Barnes & Noble and I saw this. It was front and center. They're promoting the heck out of it. So I thought, you know what? I'll give it a chance. I don't know anything about it, but I'll see if I can trust their judgment. So that's what I did. An overview, this book is about two video game developers and explores their relationships. Sam and Sadie are the two characters. They meet when they're around 12 years old, and it follows them for around 30 years of their life, developing games together and their professional and personal relationship with each other and the people around them. So yeah, that's the overview. Going into things, well, let me just preface this by saying I have never had a more interesting journey with how I felt about a book. I hated it, and then I thought it was fine, and then I liked it. Just as an overall journey of my experience with this, so the likes and dislikes might be all over the place. I'll start with the things that I liked. The strongest parts of this book are when the two characters started their video game company together. Their thought process of designing the games, how the author goes through like the success of it and like their interviews about it. I found that stuff very, very entertaining. And I liked kind of like the behind the scenes of them like creating the games and then like jumping forward to see like their press tour about it while they're still debating about who the main character should look like and stuff like that. I thought it was very creative, and overall this book is very creative. There's not many books about the video game industry, and also the author uses some unique literary techniques to spice up the story. It felt pretty fast to me, it's around 400 pages. I saw some reviews that people thought it dragged, but I didn't feel that way at all. I thought it was a very entertaining, quick read, and I appreciated that. The relationships between the two main characters, which is what the whole book is based around, I thought at the end of the day was a very interesting and compelling relationship. I had some issues with it, which with what I'll go through later, I'm sure. But at the end of the book, I was content with the story of these two people that I got to experience. But going into things that I didn't like, the first 70 pages of this book, I thought it was the worst book that I ever read. Sorry, but I thought it was very pretentious and just badly written. First of all, there's a large portion of this book where the two main characters are children, and they don't speak like children. They speak like Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, because they're both very smart. So I guess it's very difficult. Oh, and it probably is very difficult to write smart children, but they just sounded like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, which was so distracting to me. So yeah, the children dialogue wasn't very believable. And then even like when they're like college years, I just found the way that they spoke like very like unrealistic and like just the author was just trying to prove like, oh, these characters are so smart. And even in like the description text of like the author like explaining things to me about video games or like other things, it felt pretentious even from the author, as if like some things didn't need an explanation, but it's like, oh, but I know a lot about this topic, so I'm gonna do a side paragraph, not in any like character's POV or like an omniscient character. No, I'm going to have a paragraph like copy and paste it from Wikipedia using big words just to prove how smart I am. That's how I felt about it in the first 70 pages. Whether or not that's true, it's the rest of the book that's understated, but the first 70 books I was just like, I was raging. Side note, there's maybe I'm wrong about this, but Sadie's grandmother is a German character, and she has affectation, is that what it's called? Like a term of endearment for her granddaughter, and she calls her Mine Sadie, which I thought was weird because it's spelled like M-I-N-E, because I was wondering if she meant like mine as in the German my, M-E-I-N, and then just spelled it wrong every time, but I found that very distracting. So if M-I-N-E, like Mine Sadie, is an actual term of endearment, please somebody let me know, because I just thought that'd be a really stupid typo if you did it that many times. Anyway, that was a side point. Other than that, there was another character, Marks, who's also a main character. His early characterization I thought was very, very strange. It was like you got a cardboard cutout of a person and then said, what do they like? What do they like? Oh, they like theater, so they say theater quotes. That's a character. So I hated that. But then after I got past the 70-page mark, I'm like, oh, this book is so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. Then I'm like, oh, well, I kind of like that part. All right, they made the video game company. Okay, I'll keep going. And then eventually I was like, okay, I'm invested in this story. Might as well finish it. I'm like 200 pages in. But by the end, it ended up being all right. And it's just the author... I think that's my overall issue with the book, is that it is just a little bit too pretentious. The author not takes it too seriously, but wants us to take it like more deeply and more powerfully when the writing just doesn't justify it, which is, I think, the main crux of the issues that I had with it. And an example of like the pretentiousness is there's a specific moment towards the back half of the book where an entire chapter is written in second person. And when I was reading this chapter, it was kind of like a microcosm for my whole experience with the book. The first half of that chapter, I was like, second person? And it's an emotional part of the book, I'll say that. I'm like, second person? There's a reason why in writing classes, they tell you to avoid second person. And it's because that it's very hard to do good. And if you do it wrong, you sound like you just got out of a writing class. And it didn't work with me. I'm like, this is so distracting. I hate it. But then literally the last paragraph is like very like beautiful. And I'm like, okay, I guess you justified it because of that. But it just felt like you had to put me through like 10 pages of second person just so you could get that last paragraph, which is a very solidly, beautifully written paragraph. But you just had to subject me to the rest of it. So that's over my overall summary. It's a little back and forth, but basically my concise judgment is it has good parts in it, and if you're willing to get through the not so good parts, it's an enjoyable story. Take that as you will. Overall, was it worth the hype? I'm glad I read it. I'll say that. It was unique. Thank you.